So are you ready for this? Hi, I'm Andrew Foley. I'm moderating the panel. I don't know why you'd care, but they make me introduce myself. I'm here primarily to introduce somebody you're all familiar with, possibly from his books, Just a Geek, Dancing Barefoot, or The Happiest Days of Our Lives, or possibly from his site, WilWheaton.net, or possibly from his show Tabletop, or possibly as Fox, the leader of the Axis of Anarchy on the Guild. But most likely you know him as Colin Chaos Mason from Leverage. All right. And I guess he track the next generation as well. So we can have a big hand for Wil Wheaton.
It's as much fun to run around in that stupid thing as you think it is. Hi.
So how did you want to do this? Do you want to just address your adulating fans, or do you want to take questions? Or I know you've got a big announcement coming up.
Why don't we take questions? It's more interesting to talk about what you want to talk about than what I want to talk about.
But not what I want to talk about. So I'm going to ask some questions. No.
All right, that's fine. That works for me as well. I said on Twitter a couple of days ago that I had a major announcement to make when I was here. Well, don't get too because it occurred to me that I'm making, while major in its nature and while exciting to me, is probably just going to cause Canada to have a sad. I know. How many of you are familiar with the television show Falling Skies? Last season, I hosted their after show, Second Watch. And a lot of people have asked if we were going to do Second Watch again and if I was going to host Second Watch again. And until about a week ago, the answer was, I don't know. But Second Watch is coming back for another season. I am hosting Second Watch for its second season, and I will be moderating the Falling Skies panel at San Diego Comic-Con. Now, unrelated to that announcement, I wonder how many of you in Canada know about using an internet proxy to trick a server into thinking you're in America.
They're not supposed to know.
All right, then. So I'm really looking forward to hosting Second Watch next year and having everyone in the world able to watch it by coming to America where it's geo-locked for some reason.
All right, do we have any questions? No. Run, monkey, run.
While we're getting our questions set up, I want to tell you all that I am really happy to be north of the wall again. I still have never seen a leaf on a tree in Calgary all the times I've been here. I love to come to Canada. I love to listen to Rush in the original Canadian. I love watching hockey in Canada, especially being a Los Angeles Kings fan. It's nice to come back up here and let you all know what it's like to be the fan of a team that's won the Stanley Cup recently.
Oh, you had them and you lost them, man.
And I also wanted to sincerely congratulate the Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto Maple Leafs fans on finally making it into the playoffs for the first time since 2004. All you had to do was eliminate half the season to do it. So that's really great for you guys. I'm really happy for you. And now, having alienated nearly everyone in the room, I would be delighted to answer any questions that you have.
Should I stand? Okay. So I'm not much of a hockey person, so you haven't alienated me.
Sweet.
Thanks again for coming back to Calgary. And my question is, during the last episode of Tabletop Resistance, when you got floored by Felicia Day's betrayal.
Evil, awful, horrible human being.
I was just kind of curious of how much of that was like really played up and how much of it was like actual, she hurt your feelings and stuff.
Absolutely none of it was played up. I was actually really hoping that I would be a spy in Resistance because that is the most fun in that game. And it's especially if you're playing with like a 10-player group. For those of you who don't know, Tabletop is a show that I created with Felicia Day and I host on Geek and Sundry on YouTube. And the show is about us playing tabletop board games with people who are interesting, YouTube content creators and writers and actors and musicians and just people that we like. And my goal with the show is to put more gamers in the world and sort of show people who might not really be familiar with nerdy board games what those games are like and why those of us who play them for hundreds of hours a year do that. And to sort of give gamers something to show their non-gaming partners, like, look, this is why I do this, and give people an excuse to get together and play board games. And so far, it's been very successful. We've been able to actually put a lot more gamers in the world. Earlier this year, we hosted the first annual International Tabletop Day, where we organized events in, I want to say, 65 countries on all 7 continents, including Antarctica. We were steps away from actually having Commander Hadfield on the International Space Station get involved. But then, as it turns out, the American government is just a bunch of fucking idiots. And it's so important to the Congress in my country that multi-billionaires save a little bit of their money, then we like fund science research, that we were told that NASA's budget has been cut and cut and cut and cut, and it would probably not go over well if we were having spending money to have someone play games with us. Which is fine. He wrung out a towel with water and we got to see how surface tension works in zero gravity and it was amazing. So that's fine, I'm fine with that. So more to the point of your question. We played this game called Resistance, which is a game where you have a loyal group of resistance fighters working in the distant future against an evil government that's controlled by corporations. So it's sort of like the distant future of, I don't know, 2013. And then there's another group of players who are spies who are trying to undermine the resistance. And the real fun of the game is trying to figure out who the spies are and the accusations that get made. And in this episode, Felicia and Allison Scagliotti were the spies. And I play this game with Felicia all the time. And she's generally an open book. She's very easy to read and very easy to figure out where her loyalties are. And she just... There is a reason she's such a good actor. And she just completely fooled me. I haven't really talked, this is the first time I've actually disclosed this publicly. One of the other players in the game is my friend Ashley Clements, who plays Lizzie Bennett in the Lizzie Bennett Diaries on YouTube. Okay, so I have the biggest crush in the world on her. Like, I'm not kidding. It's like, if I had like a book with hearts on it, she would be on every page. It would just be her and John Barrowman all the way. And then like Nathan Fillion pasted onto the back cover. But the thing is, like, I have such a huge crush on her that I couldn't look at her that much when we were playing because it made me feel blushy and weird. And I was, if I had watched her a little bit more closely, I probably would have figured out that she actually wasn't a spy, and it would have helped me a little bit. But I didn't play any of that up. I felt unbelievably betrayed by Felicia, which is the goal of that game. And I was mortified at myself for not being a more intuitive, better player. But it is an incredibly fun game, and I know that I saw a vendor in the vendors hall that is selling tons of board games, and he's also selling a game called Bang that's very similar to Resistance. That's really a whole lot of fun. I could talk about games forever, so we should go to the next question.
I see a couple hands at the back there.
I'm going to have to shill for some friends a little bit. I was just wondering if you're aware that Calgary has the largest tabletop gaming store in the world.
I did not know that. That's amazing.
It's called the Sentry Box, and they would love it if you would come by.
Dude, that's great. Did they do a Tabletop Day event?
They do all kinds.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, so here's what I'm not gonna do. Walk into a game shop and then pay to have my game shipped back to America. because I will walk out of there with everything. I'm about to start a Savage Worlds campaign for my friends, and I've just been going crazy buying RPG source books from worlds that have nothing to do with Savage Worlds because I like to steal things from books and put them into my role-playing campaigns. And I've actually, I'm like an alcoholic, but for games. And I just have to walk by the game store and be like, just one step at a time, man. Just one after the other. Just, you can do it. Just get there. Okay, you made it to the corner. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing today. We're gonna get to the corner again tomorrow. That's how I have to do it.
How do you manage the balance between writing for the blog and writing for your books, and then you're working on a campaign?
You know, that's actually something I've been wrestling with a lot lately. I used to write in my blog almost every day, and that was kind of the only place I had online to speak. And over the years, with the growth of additional kind of platforms that make communication as easy as blogging did in 2000 when I started, it's become difficult to stay focused and just stay in one place. I have very specific interactions on Google+, where that's where I go to talk about like programming my phone, and like I soft bricked my phone, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and the leader of the Cyanogen mod project was like, did you try turning it off and back on again? And I was like, yes, I have. And then I talk there a lot about, I'm a home brewer, so I talk about making beer there and things. But then on Facebook, it's a different audience, and it's a wider audience. And I've done these experiments, like between the two, to see kind of where there's more interaction and where there's more traffic and stuff. And then there's Twitter and Tumblr and just all these different places. So it has to be more of a discipline than it used to be. Like I really need to have something to say when I write on my blog. And I've been using my blog more to write longer form narrative nonfiction pieces, which is what I used to only do. And then Twitter is for, you know, stupid short jokes that are off the top of my head. Like yesterday I wondered if Mr. T has to make a conscious decision to pity fools, or if he's done it for so long that it's just part of his parasympathetic nervous system. Somebody said something really funny to me about how ask not for whom Mr. T pities, he pities thee, or something like that. It was very funny. And then I have things that I do on my own. I'm writing a book right now, and I don't know if I'm ever going to publish it. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to publish, but just like telling this story and taking these characters through this world is great. And John Scalzi gave me a lot of advice about writing this particular book, because I was really struggling with it, and I felt like, but what if it sucks? And he was like, so what if it sucks? And he was telling me how he set out to write a book about something, and I don't remember what it was, and it wasn't working. So he took pieces out of it, and it became Judge Sin Goes Golfing. And that's a great short story that he wrote. And it gave me permission to sit down and write this story. And some author, and I want to say it's either Neil Gaiman or Stephen King, says each book teaches you how to write it as you're writing it. And it is very weird for me to sit down and write a thing and then not publish it immediately, and not get the immediate feedback, and not get the immediate conversation. And it's very different from sitting down on my blog. There's times where I write stuff, you know, the maddening thing as a blogger is you sit down and spend all this time writing a thing on your blog, and like 5 people will comment on it, and then you'll like, you know, we're like, butts! And then it's like 7,000 comments, like, yeah man, butts! Really? Not the thing that I put a lot of thought into. Thanks, No Child Left Behind generation.
All right, I see a few more hands back there.
I was wondering what the first Doctor Who that you watched, and who is your favorite, and if you would like a jelly baby.
I actually don't like jelly babies because they have beef gelatin in them, and it kind of tastes like I'm eating cold gravy to me, which is weird. I know people like that. It's very popular in England, where apparently boiling meat's a thing they do. My very first doctor was Tom Baker, as evidenced by this. You know, it's great, you guys. Yesterday, Sylvester McCoy walked by me a number of times yesterday, and every single time he walked by me, he gave me a hard time about my scarf. And it was awesome, and it was hilarious, and it was so much fun. The very first episode that I remember watching was the Genesis of the Daleks story, which is like 4 or 6 episodes. I can't remember how many it is. But I watched Doctor Who when I was a kid in the 70s, and the way that I watched it back then was very different from the way we watch Doctor Who today. In the 70s, in America, it was on UHF television, which meant that you had to get it on an antenna, and it didn't come in very clear, and it was on a black and white TV, and it was kind of there were ghosted images, and the sound was a little weird. It was through a little monaural speaker, and it was terrifying to me. I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. The arc in space, terrifying to me as a kid. And then you watch it now, and it's like, oh, it's bubble wrap. Great. I don't know. How in the world was I afraid of that bubble wrap? But there's a wonderful thing. Neil Gaiman talks about having watched Doctor Who from behind the couch. So you're sort of like peeking over the couch to see it because it's so terrifying. And that's the way that I remember Doctor Who. And I was just saying yesterday, you know what I would love is a post-processing filter on my computer. So when I watch Doctor Who episodes on Netflix, I can like put it in 1978 mode. And it would be black and white with a little bit of static, and the image would maybe lose its phase lock from time to time. And I wonder if it would be as scary to me now as it was back then. And I was talking to a lady this morning because she was commenting about my scarf and wanted to know like why I liked this particular Doctor Who. And when I was a kid, it was the only new science fiction that was on television regularly. There were other things that I wasn't as into, but the idea behind Doctor Who that you can go anywhere in time and space and you can solve problems by being clever was really inspiring to me, and is one of the reasons I'm a Star Trek fan. Let's go to this side of the room, who I feel is underrepresented.
Someone's had their hand up there for quite a while.
You're the American left in Canada.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm a big fan of Star Trek. I'm completely obsessed, actually.
Yes?
I don't really watch you now because I'm still obsessed with that. But I watched Eureka, which you were pretty good in that as well.
Thanks.
So
Can we back up? Just pretty good, huh?
Well, like, compared to Star Trek, though.
Right. No, I get it. I get it.
Pretty good. It's good. So you've had a pretty amazing life, and you've been exposed to a lot of really cool things and a lot of cool science-y things. So I'm just wondering if you can sum up your life in 5 words or less.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to use... Can I use a hyphenated word as one word?
Yes, I'm going to say yes.
Okay. I hope I never wake up.
How about another one from over there?
Okay. 2 things. I have some buttons I want to give you.
All right.
And secondly,
Sorry, that was buttons.
Buttons.
Buttons? Okay, just making sure.
not but anything else, although I wouldn't say no.
7,000 comments.
I absolutely love tabletop as
Thank
a
you.
tabletop gamer. I was just wondering, when do you think we might see the repeats of some games or some guests as sort of a tabletop all-stars?
That's a really good question, and is something that a lot of people have asked me about. And I approached some of my friends who were winners last season and asked them if they would be interested in coming back for like an all-stars or an all-winners kind of thing. And everyone said yes so far. I don't know what game we're going to play. I don't particularly want to play a game we've already played, although I am considering this season playing some games that are expansions of or different versions of games we played last year. So for example, we are playing Star Trek Catan, which is, I think, the absolute best Settlers of Catan I've ever played. It's not just Catan in cosplay, like it's actually a very different game with an incredible strategy element that Catan itself lacks. But I really want to play Ticket to Ride Europe, which is one of my favorite of the Tickets to Rides. Tickets to Ride? Ticket to Rides? Ticket to Rides, there it is. And I am going to ask my wife to come back and play on that episode again. And we're going to make sure the table is locked down. Let's go ahead and grab our next question while these buttons arrive.
Yeah, there's been an arm up there for quite a while.
Thank you.
Hey, Will, I'm Tom.
One says Tumblr famous, which is great, and the other one, appropriately, is just a picture of a cartoon butt. These things all go together. Thank you. You have, this is that place in the Venn diagram where Jeff Jackson and I overlap. So thanks, the 8 people of you who get that. That was just for you.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, I was wondering if you could do me a huge favor. 2 quick things. Number 1, could you swear Aophel's oath of enmity on me?
On you?
Yeah.
Do you know what happens when Aophel swears oath of enmity on you?
I'm intimately familiar with what happens.
Okay.
You die.
Right. Oh, that's true. You turned that around on me. Well done. All right, and what's the second thing?
Are there any plans to do more D&D stuff with the Penny Arcade guys in the future?
Not this year because we do it at PAX, and I'm actually going to be at Dragon Con instead of PAX this year. I know. Somehow we're going to find a way to get through it together. But that is so much fun, and I've enjoyed it so much that I am working on developing a spin-off of Tabletop that's a season-long RPG campaign. Same players, I'm gonna DM, and we'll go for a full season in a campaign. So we're working on that right now. It's shockingly expensive to put together a show like that. And as far as Aophel's Oath of Enmity goes, yes. Ancienne Meatola Elohia. So, I'm sorry about you dying soon, but you did ask me to do it. Just don't run over any hidden acid pit traps, or I'll be very unhappy.
Hi, this is actually a question I had for you last year, but it was virtually impossible to get into your panel. But
All right.
Last year we had 2 or 3 large AAA games, which the endings didn't go over too well with the crowds, and there was a lot of discussion about how much gamers can actually buy into the development and story of a game.
Yeah.
Well, you're a gamer, but you're also an artist and a developer. So, just what was your take on that? Do you think that the
So you're talking about Mass Effect?
That one, and there was another one too that it didn't go over too well how they ended it. So I just wanted to see, like, you kind of straddle the line in both.
Yeah.
So what was your attitude and idea on that?
In general, as a creator, I make the thing that I want to make, and I hope that people who come to it enjoy it. And it's very easy to get distracted by trying to make something that you think everybody's gonna like. And if you do that, you end up with Everybody Loves Raymond. And like, or According to Jim, right? You just end up with something that's kind of bland and safe and uninteresting. One of the reasons I love a show like Mad Men so much is that it is exactly what it is. They know exactly what it is. They have never strayed away from what it is about. They could probably have a bigger audience if they went in different ways, but they don't. And I absolutely love that about that. So as a creator and as an artist, I want to make, I've got the thing in my head and I want to put it out there. Now what's interesting with video games, especially the big, long narrative AAA titles, is that a feature of those games is you are making a promise to the audience. You can affect this game. You can choose different ways to go in this game. With Dragon Age Origins, I was so emotionally invested in my character by the time I was there toward the end. And I was role-playing him, and like my character had completely fallen in love with Morrigan. Maybe I did a little bit too. But then she was like, so you gotta put a demon baby in me or I'm leaving. And my guy was lawful good, and that was never gonna happen. And it was heartbreaking for me to let her go. That was incredibly powerful. And it had real, like, emotional consequences for me as a player. I think they did it right. Now, I haven't played through Mass Effect, but I have lots of friends who have. And the complaint that a lot of my friends had was that you spent like, I don't know, 300 hours or something in the 2 previous games, like taking all these different paths and, you know, choosing how you're going to go. And they gave you the illusion of having an ending that fit the path that you took. But what they actually kind of did was funneled you into one of like maybe 3 things, and they were all basically the same. And I think that's a cheat. I think that's cheap. And I think they broke the promise to the audience. As long as you keep the promise, it's called, in writing, it's called the promise of the premise. As long as you fulfill that, as long as you make that, it's fine. So in video games, especially the big narrative games, the promise of the premise is you can make different choices. They should do that. But in a game like Uncharted, which is basically on rails, I don't care because I feel like I'm in a movie where I'm just controlling the pace. And that's great. I mean, there was a day in Uncharted where I didn't advance the story at all. I just walked around the jungle because it looked great. In Red Dead Redemption, I regularly just got on my horse and went for a ride. I think I'm gonna, what are you doing in there, honey? My wife would say, I'm picking flowers. Picking flowers, riding my horse. Will you come eat dinner? I'm gonna go watch the sunset in Mexico, and then I'll save the game, and then I'll come back. So, like, I mean, I think that as a creator, whatever you're creating, you have to fulfill the promise of the premise. And if your promise is the decisions you make in this game matter, and you're gonna have an ending that really matters based on the decisions you made, you need to fulfill that.
Okay, this gentleman's had his hand up for a while.
As a fellow dungeon master, I'm just curious what you think is the most important thing for a dungeon master to bring to a game.
The most important thing for a dungeon master to bring to a game is the knowledge of what his players are expecting. If your players want to go and hack and slash through a dungeon, you need to create that for them. If your players want to really explore an area and kind of have an effect on the people who live there, you need to do that. You need to know what kind of players you have and then give them that kind of adventure. The way that I approach role-playing is that we're all working together to tell a collaborative story. And if the system gets in the way of that, then you need to break the system and change the things that sort of do that. But you're never an adversary to your players. You're sort of you're like a facilitator. At the same time, if your players think that they can just run around and they're never going to die, you got to start killing some people. Because I think that's a thing that has to exist in role-playing games. There has to be the real fear that your player could be killed if you do the wrong thing, and teach your players that it's not bad to retreat from something. You know, maybe you're just not ready to fight that guy just yet.
Okay, you were rather enthusiastic, waving your arms, so.
Hi, Will.
Hi.
I'm not a gamer. Don't hate me. I'm in PFOG, which is Parents and Friends of Gamers.
That's amazing. I've never heard that. We would call you gamer adjacent.
I'm here because I love your writing and I love your acting. My one
Thank you.
fangirl gush is the best child performance I ever saw was you in Stand By Me.
That's really
It was
sweet.
the
Thank
purest
you.
performance I ever saw. When you watch child performances, you can kind of see the precociousness underneath.
Yeah.
And yours was, no, I didn't see a bit of that. I loved it. I
Thank
have
you.
a couple of obscure questions for you.
All right.
Number one, when are you and Bobby the Mat gonna make a movie? And number two, do you remember
I don't know.
Usenet at 3 o'clock in the morning screaming and yelling at us over making your Linux?
I don't remember Usenet at 3 o'clock in the morning. But that was a long time ago.
Mets fans, Spud Nuts. You would come on at 3 in the morning and you'd be screaming and crying a little probably. And they helped you build your computer. Remember that?
Yeah, well, that probably would have been on IRC on one of the channels that Mets fan ran. Right. Oh, it's nice to meet you. We just communicated in internet for a minute there. We went through the time machine. It was great. Thank you. You know, you said really kind things about Stand By Me, and I just want to be really clear about something. That movie, like all movies, was a collaborative effort, and there is no such thing as a film or television show that just shows up and just is the way that it is. I was having drinks with Peter Dinklage last night. Like, that's a thing that happened? And then while we were talking, Lita Henley came up and put her hand on my shoulder on purpose and smiled at me. It's real. That really happened. I was talking to Peter Dinklage about movies, and we were sort of commiserating about how he said that the actors on his show are wonderful, and they're lovely, and they work hard, and they respect the material, and they know the characters. And I said, it's the same way on Big Bang Theory, and it was the same way on, I'm lucky, it was the same way on Leverage and Eureka. And then we were talking about how there's these actors who are just sort of shits, and they don't care, and they act like no work went into this before the script got into my hand. And it's so, it's disrespectful to the writers, and it's so insulting to the creative process to not respect the material that's in front of you and then work very hard to bring that material to life in a way that the writer kind of sees it in his head. And yes, it's a collaboration. There are times where you just, as an actor, I look at a thing and I have to say, I don't get why he's doing this. And it's either I didn't understand it and someone can explain it to me and then I can justify it and put it together, or the writer will say, yeah, that must have been left in from an earlier draft and things got changed and let's just do this instead. Stand By Me was a very collaborative effort, and the thing that made Stand By Me really great was Rob Reiner. And it was Rob Reiner being like with his hand on the stick the whole time, casting 4 young kids who were those characters, and then just pushing us and letting us go. And if we started to go too far off the trail, nudging us back and just keeping it all together. And we are all so unbelievably lucky that we got to work with him, that we got to be in that film. And there are actors who go their entire careers just hoping to have something like that in their resume. And I am so unbelievably lucky that I get to stand on the shoulders of that for the rest of my life. So I just want to make sure that I'm not taking credit for that. That was not me. That was Rob and our writers and the people involved in that.
Okay, this lady's had her hand up for a bit, up in the front here.
Stand By Me actually got me my first job liking that movie. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope it was a good job.
It was at a movie
theater.
theater.
A job that was satisfying.
It was great.
Good. It'd be awful if you were like, I like Stand By Me, and the guy was like, come, let's pick up trash together.
The other thing I wanted to ask was, you narrate audiobooks.
I do.
And you did Ready Player One.
I did. Thanks.
It's a great book. How did you feel that they actually name-dropped you as essentially president of the internet?
It's weird when art imitates life. It was really fun. I loved reading that book. I loved the world that Ernie created, and I know some people that are working hard to option it for movies, and I keep begging them to let me be in it in some capacity. I think it's a really wonderful thing. Reading audiobooks is an incredible joy for me, and lets me do 2 things that I love. I get to read, and I get to perform at the same time. And I'm really grateful to everybody that keeps buying the audiobooks that I do. Thank you so much. We just got the 5 minutes, so let's do a lightning round. Okay, so let's go to this guy over here. Yeah, you. Yeah, I saw your hand go up.
Hi, you're a celebrity who's really famous for being yourself, which I think is awesome that can happen now. Do you see a correlation or a difference in people approaching you for people who are famous for being movie stars and stuff like that? Do you think it'd be easier, or do you think it's harder?
Well, when I am on television, there's an intimacy to television that doesn't exist in movies. Television, you're in somebody's home. And YouTube, you're on somebody's phone, you're in their pocket, right? Which is sometimes awesome, most of the time weird. When people come to talk to me, they're either surprised that I'm a person, because they've seen me on The Big Bang Theory. A guy came up to me once and he was like, I loved you in The Big Bang Theory. And I said, thank you. And he said, and we talked about it for a minute, and then he said, this is embarrassing, but I know you play Wil Wheaton, but I don't know what your name is. I've always made a real effort to not think of myself as a big stinking deal, and just it's so important to me to be like a father to my children and a husband to my wife, and hopefully an inspiration to people to be the best they can be and to do good, kind, honest, honorable things in the world. It's not important to me to be like a famous person. And like if that all went away, I don't care. So, thanks. So when people are like fans of the things that I do, I think that that's kind of knowledge, right? Like that's just a thing that people sort of know. And I think that we have a different relationship than like me losing my mind when I met John Barrowman 2 days ago, right? I mean, I was just like, that's when I knew I was gay. That's how it happened. It happened right there. And then he hugged me, and I was like, I don't ever want this to stop. Because that's the relationship I have with them. I'm like, you're the beautiful man on TV, right? But then my relationship with people who like my work is different. It's more like, a lot of people have read Just a Geek, and they've read the blog, and like we have a different kind of interaction. And I think that I get this wonderful, I've got depression and anxiety, and I get weird, and I'm like, can't talk, don't touch. And people tend to know that. I was doing photos in Kansas City, and the photographer at the end of the thing said, I noticed that when people come in to have their picture taken with you, like, they're not all grabby like they are with other people. Like, why is that? And I said, because everybody knows that I have social anxiety, and I freak out when someone puts their arm around me. And he said, you've got the best fans in the world, that like they know that and care. And I was like, well, yes. We probably have time for one two more? Okay.
This lady's had her arm up.
Oh, no, you got to climb over. Yeah, that's great. That's good. You can't just throw that mic like peanuts in the stadium. Can't do that.
Hi, Will.
Hi.
I'm trying to make my camera work at the same time so I can do this.
Okay.
I'm a new mom.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I was wondering if you could tell my daughter Violet for when she's older why it's awesome to be a nerd.
Yeah. We'll do that. Are you going? Hi, Violet. My name is Wil Wheaton. It's 2013, and you've just recently joined us on planet Earth. So welcome. I'm an actor, and I'm a writer, and I'm a dad. And your mother asked me to tell you why it's awesome to be a nerd. And that's an easy thing for me to do because that's who I am. I don't know what the world's going to be like by the time you understand this. I don't know what it's going to mean to be a nerd when you are a young woman. For me, when I was growing up, being a nerd meant that I liked things that were a little weird, that took a lot of effort to appreciate and understand. It meant that I loved science, and I loved playing board games and reading books and really understanding what went on in the world instead of just kind of riding the planet through space. And when I was a little boy, people really teased us about that and made us feel like there was something wrong with us for loving those things. Now that I'm an adult, I'm kind of a professional nerd, and the world has changed a lot. And I think a lot of us have realized that being a nerd, or being a geek is another word you'll hear, and I sort of use the terms interchangeably. It's not about what you love. It's about how you love it. So there's going to be a thing in your life that you love, and I don't know what it's going to be. It might be sports, it might be science, it might be reading, it might be fashion design, it might be building things, it might be telling stories or painting pictures. It doesn't matter what it is. The way you love that, and the way that you find other people who love it the way you do, is what makes being a nerd awesome. The defining characteristic of us, the people in this room, and I'm going to ask your mom to turn this camera around in a minute. Go there, go, Mom. Okay. The defining characteristic that ties us all together is that we love things. And some of us love Firefly, And some of us love Game of Thrones. And some of us love, these are things that you'll be able to go see. They're in your history book. Some of us love Star Trek or Star Wars or anime or games or fantasy or science fiction. Some of us love completely different things, but we all love those things so much that we travel for thousands of miles, which is probably easy for you, but is still difficult for us now. We're still on fossil fuels. I don't know what you're gonna be on, but it's difficult. We come from all over, in some cases all over the world, so that we can be around people who love the things that we love the way that we love them. And that's why being a nerd is awesome. And don't ever let anybody tell you that that thing that you love is a thing that you can't love. Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't love that, that's for boys. You have to love this because you're a girl. You find the things that you love and you love them the most that you can. And listen, this is really important. I want you to be honest, honorable, kind. I want you to work hard because everything worth doing is hard. And I want you to be awesome. And I'm going to do my very best to leave you a planet that you can still live on. Have a great life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and spending some time with me today, everybody. Thanks a lot.